fragments have been collected, who will take control of the Eye of Zardoth? Let's find out this week on Duderonomy. I'm Dan.
And I'm Bryan.
And we're talking about The Curse of the Evil Eye.
Season 2, Episode 5, aired on October 29th, 1988. This is the big conclusion of the Zardoth story arc.
Yep.
And I have been looking forward to this episode because, as we have mentioned through this entire process here, I don't remember the individual story arcs in the series. And I was so pleasantly surprised that this early on, beyond the miniseries that kicked off the whole thing, that they instantly jumped into another arc. And in my head, for the life of me, all 36 years of it, I thought all the Turtles were just Monster of the Week episodes. I do not remember two-parters, let alone three.
Yeah, it is nice to get, some mini arcs in this series. I think for me, what stood out was, I didn't remember anything of the actual storyline. I didn't remember what was going to happen, but I did remember some of the iconography. Some of the imagery in this episode specifically, I was like, oh, that's where this came from. There are specific things with, the different characters wearing the helmet that I was like, oh, yeah, that came back to me. So it was really fun to, place that particular memory in the show. Yeah,
for sure. Some of the iconography is borrowed. Did not originate with them, but they did put their own spin on it, but we can touch on that later. So let's kick it off. We are back at the pier, and the Turtles...
We're back in Brooklyn.
We're back in Brooklyn, and the Turtles are in their adorable little construction onesies.
With Abe Lincoln beards.
I was going to say Mennonite beards, but you're right. Raphael's not a fan of these, by the way. It's very clear at the front. Raphael does not like these disguises that apparently Michelangelo picked out. I am a fan of these. I think these are probably some of the best that they've had so far because... I don't know, I guess you'd fade in the background with nothing but gray head to toe. And they actually cover the faces a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. The glasses and the beard cover the faces, and the green on the hands, you can be like, okay, those are gloves. They kind of fit in. The thing that I find hilarious is that every time they come up with a costume or a disguise, it's always the same one.
You mean as in all four of them wear the same thing? There's no...
Yes.
They never do the Village People where there's a Native American and a construction worker and a police officer?
Exactly, yeah.
Oh my God, why has that never been a toy? Hold on, I'm writing this down.
We
got to reach out to Mattel and let them know that we need Village People turtle figures ASAP.
I think that there was enough action figures throughout the run that they just did it by accident. Because I have a Leonardo as Native American figure, and
there's definitely a police officer turtle somewhere.
Exactly. I think the only one they didn't do is the Leather Daddy.
To anyone's listening out there with your Etsy, let's go see some mods. Okay, so we're down at the pier. We're tailing the crystal, the Eye of Zardoth with the tracker thingy. Which was a plot that was forgotten for the entire second half of the last episode. And we're out in the water. Baxter is scuba diving in an old, diving bell uniform kind of thing. He's got all this modern technology, right?
Yep.
And he's going down into the Hudson River in, some reject from a German U-boat.
I think it's the only thing that can protect him from whatever's in the Hudson.
Dead bodies?
Sewage? Radiation?
He hoists back up into Shredder's cozy little speedboat. It's a nice boat. But okay. I gotta ask. We gotta talk about Shredder's outfit.
Yeah, we have to.
I'm not a fashion blogger, but that Sea Captain raincoat, chef's kiss. Absolute chef's kiss.
This is his best disguise.
Was he disguised, or was he just trying to protect himself from rusting?
That's a good point. See, I have a little bit of there is some really funny timing with this particular episode because, as you know, Bryan, and as our listeners will now know, I am a huge New York Islanders fan.
That's true. It's unfortunate, but true.
Just a recent development was, I guess they'll place this particular episode in the moment of time we are recording it. You'll hear this way later, but the New York Islanders just announced their retro jersey. Their reverse retro jersey is a thing that the NHL is doing with Adidas. I think it's Adidas. Maybe it's whatever. The company doesn't matter. But the New York Islanders announced their version, and it's bringing back the Fisherman logo from the 90s.
Oh,
which
that's so cool.
I despise. I hate it.
I like it.
It's the Gorton's Fisherman. It's really ugly. It also calls back to probably when the Islanders were the worst in their franchise history. So I could derail this podcast so much, but the timing of watching this particular episode with Shredder in the fisherman getup just landed right at the time that it makes me want to make a reverse retro Islanders jersey that has the Shredder as the fisherman instead.
You should do it. You should do it. We'll make a merch store just for that.
Yeah. So if anybody has a hookup with a fashion designer or a clothes manufacturer, hit us up so we can make that jersey.
We can talk to. We'll go yell at Fox Printing. He'll help us out. We'll figure it out. Okay. So even though he does have the raincoat on, I do like to point out that the man is covered in knives. I also do kind of wish I could have seen a version of Shredder with like the blue captain's jacket and the little hat like on the Love Boat. That's just me.
There's still time. There's got to be more water episodes.
Do you think he puts blades on his boat shoes?
I think he puts blades on everything.
Think he's got blades on his toothbrush?
Anything that he wears definitely has blades.
I have a question before we get too deep in this episode that is special to you and me. Is this episode mixed fucking terribly, or am I crazy?
You know, I didn't notice anything on my setup.
The first 2.5 to 3 minutes, it felt like the music was drowning everybody out. I don't know. If anybody's got an opinion on that one, love to hear it. We have a Discord. It's in the show notes. We'll shout it out over and over again. We do want to have anybody who's out there listening join us in the Discord. We're sharing memes and a whole bunch of BS in there, but also looking for legitimate feedback. So yeah, in my opinion, the audio in this episode is subpar. That's my only big, sincere criticism of it.
Yeah, I did not pick that up. I was watching this from Google Play. I bought it on Google Play, and I was listening to it on my Sonos soundbar. So I don't know if like the mix for surround sound is different than whatever mix you were listening to, or if it's just because I had a whole lot of speakers next to my head, I didn't pick it up, but I didn't notice anything.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a decent enough 5.1 system, but this is obviously only mixed in stereo. But it just kind of felt like it was, the music was a little too loud. But we're probably getting in the weeds on that. Let's talk about the funny shit.
That's why we're here.
That's why you and I are here. That's not why all 5 of our other listeners are here.
We live in the weeds.
Shredder gets floundered. Either way, they got the final crystal, and the Turtles realize this because their tracker just shuts off. That's actually pretty good product design, if you ask me.
I just think it's really funny that Donnie at least was smart enough to be like, I know where it is. Oh, it's gone. Gotta be Shredder. Literally nobody else is looking for these things.
I mean, yeah, he's right. No one else is looking for those things. Until... We'll get to that later.
Yeah.
My next note just says, for fuck's sake, for sale ship. AKA, in the language of this show, abandoned sea warehouse. Do they... Okay, giant...
It's like a cruise liner.
It's a cruise liner with a handwritten sign that says, for sale, hanging off the bow. So if I walk down... let's say I walk down to... Brooklyn Yards right now, and I just kind of gaze out. And is there like a used boat lot? Can I buy my own ocean liner for $50 off the lot?
In 1988, there was.
So Shredder embarks. We get a little bit of character development here from Baxter. He goes from Six Sad Lackey to perhaps new antagonist. He says,
just wait. One of these days, the tables will turn.
Yeah, he finally grows a backbone and gets fed up with Shredder bossing him around all the time.
We're finally getting another nemesis. We have faced off exclusively against the Shredder for... What is this now? 5, 7, 8, 9... Is this a 10th episode we've done?
Yes.
Yeah, it's a 10th episode, and we have fought no one but Shredder and Krang.
This is, this spot with the Turtles, like, tracking the hideout, and then Baxter find him. First of all, I got a couple questions. They were on a boat, weren't they?
Who's they?
Baxter and Shredder.
Well, they were on a little speedboat.
No, but then they went to the cruise liner.
Shredder went to the cruise liner. Baxter left him there.
To get lunch, right?
To get lunch.
So, like, where did he get lunch from?
Well, he comes back later with takeout.
Right. Okay, I missed it at the top. This is my bad. This is totally my bad. I saw him leave the store. I saw him leave the building. I didn't see the dragon statues at the top of the building. So that was literally just a Chinese restaurant that they tracked Baxter to.
Yeah.
But Baxter doesn't have the stone.
Oh. Well, the way I kind of took it, I don't know. They that's a good catch. It's poorly written, but they do, I feel like, slightly allude to the fact that they haven't found anybody. They happened to find Baxter while they were looking for the Shredder. They didn't say, we've reached the end line. They were still in transit, and then they were suddenly like, oh, look, it's Baxter.
Right. And then, like, he sees them out of the corner of his eye.
No, he did.
No, he looks first, and then he uses this, like, weird glasses contraption that he has.
Weird that's brilliant. That's James Bond-esque fucking spy gear there. Show some respect.
I mean, it's cool as hell. I stand corrected.
Yeah.
But this is going to be a theme with me for this episode, which is that Baxter has the wackiest technology.
Baxter has the most inconsistent technology. He just has technology. Is it technology from the 1700s? Maybe.
Right. He's a collection of technology for the past, present, and future.
Yeah, basically. And another dimension now.
True. I mean, his glasses are super cool.
The glasses are sick. I wanted to ask you, like, spy toys. When you were a kid, did you have spy toys?
Yeah, of course.
Of course. Which ones?
Like the periscope binocular type thing. There was like 9 billion different walkie-talkies, I remember. There's some kind of laser, I don't even remember what it does, or like a motion detector, I guess it was.
No X-ray specs or any of that jazz?
I mean, yes, I had something like that, but it was just the glasses with like the red spiral on them or something.
Yeah. No, those toys are great. Anybody else listening, we'd love to hear about the spy toys you had as a kid. I would personally love to talk about spy toys. I want to make
disappearing ink.
Disappearing ink. See what else? What else do we have? Ultrasonic ears.
Oh,
I thought those were dope. I always wanted the Talk Boy from Home Alone 2. That's
I had
technically a spy toy. You still have it?
I don't still have it, but I had it when I was a kid.
You son of a bitch! I wanted that so bad. I begged for it for 3 Christmases. All right, moving on. No more spy toys.
Well, can we talk about one?
Which one?
Okay. First of all, Baxter could have, like, won this whole thing. He catches the turtles off guard. He turns around and shoots a gun at them, which hits them dead to rights. He just hits them with the laser gun, except all it does is dissolve their disguises.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Like, he could have just shot them, but instead he was like, haha, I've revealed you. But you already knew it was them.
Yeah, he's got a gun that just removes costumes. The end. No way that could be misconstrued into any kind of questionable activity.
Nope.
Which, of course, as soon as he knocks their costumes off, or lasers their costumes off, red flags everywhere, and every Joe Schmo on the pier and down in the docks or whatever, they're all like, oh, the turtles are fugitives. Great job, April, I guess. I don't know.
Right? It feels like 10 episodes into the series, the writers were like, oh, right, like, people are supposed to hate these guys.
But they never do!
April's like on air being like, they saved the day again, our mysterious heroes. And they're all like, fuck those guys.
To this date, there are 6 people who hate the Turtles. Shredder, Krang, Bebop, Rocksteady, the old lady with the shopping cart, and Burns' girlfriend, or Burns' mistress.
Yep.
That's it. No one else has had a problem with them.
And now these 2 dock workers.
But they just wanted to get the money.
Also, I just want to throw out that, like, I know I'm going to harp on this gun again. Like, imagine building a gun that was supposed to reveal your enemy's disguises when they would willingly take them off for you pretty much 2 seconds after they see you.
Yeah, there really wasn't much reason to remove those costumes at all.
Like, they definitely would have just thrown them off 5 seconds later.
You ever wonder if the animators on this show were like, oh, I wish you could just let us leave the costumes on? They're way easier to animate.
Maybe.
We need to back up, though. We kind of skipped an important part.
Okay.
When Shredder is on the ship, and he's got the 3 pieces
Oh, yeah.
of the Eye of Sarnath, and he's soldering them together. No.
Okay, I have a question. Is this this isn't the first time we've seen him without his mask, right?
Correct, but it is possibly the most extensive that we've seen.
Okay, because this even felt like, it felt special. Like, I get that he's working on his helmet, but like, and we see in the rest of the episode, like, he often keeps the face mask part up.
Yeah, I mean,
Which, by the way, it's like a goiter in this.
we need to talk about the mask. That's a whole there's a conversation coming up in about 10 to 15 minutes. We will talk about the mask. For now, though, yeah, we've seen his face before, and it's weird because every turtle iteration has very inconsistent, like, sensitivity over Shredder's identity. So you and I are raised on the 1990 movie where it's like we never see his face until the end because, no spoilers, the face is an important part. But everybody else, like Rise, he doesn't really have a face.
Yeah, he's the skeleton.
2003, he spends more time, arguably, as Oroku Saki than he does as Shredder.
Yeah.
But even in the Mirage comics, like, we see his helmetless face in the first issue. It's not that big a deal.
Right, because it's more just like a battle armor type thing meant for intimidation, not like the mystery of his face.
Not at all. Except for the movie.
Right. But like, for the movie, it's less about, like, I don't know. The movie, I think it's to create the mystery of the personal connection that pays off at the end of the movie.
Yeah, but you can see straight through it. As much as I love that movie, like, even as a child, you're like, instantly know, without any context, like, oh, that's clearly the dude that killed Hamato Yoshi.
So I guess we do see his face? Because in the flashback, we see it.
Oh, that's a good point. I kind of forget about the flashback. But yeah, well, no, okay. We don't see, quote-unquote, his face. We see Oroku Saki, because in the script of the movie, they did not name-drop Oroku Saki until the last act.
Right.
We are getting way, way too in the weeds again.
Yeah. We got to save this for our inevitable movie episode.
Oh, the movie episode is going to be like a 10-parter. It's going to be like a 10-parter, and it's going to be on my deathbed. We really... Dan, he's soldering the crystals together. Do you hear the words that are coming out of my mouth, and what's wrong with that?
Oh, yeah. Yep, he's soldering it together and then soldering it to his helmet.
The only thing I'm going to give him credit for in this is that he holds a soldering iron properly. I don't know if you've ever seen, like, stock images or promo stuff with soldering irons or laboratories or workshops or anything like that, but everybody's always holding the soldering iron like a fucking pencil. Like, go to Getty Images and look up soldering, and everybody's holding the damn thing like a friggin' pencil. And it's like, you would not have fingers?
I mean, that is what he's doing.
No, he's got it by a grip. You can tell. Like, there's 2 separate parts, and he's holding it properly.
I mean, it's still in his hand like a pencil, though.
Well, okay, yeah.
He's holding it by the grip, yeah.
But he's holding it by
You mean that...
I'm telling you.
Like, in the stock ones, they're holding it down low.
I'm telling you, I will pause right now if you want to go Google...
I mean, I'm going to do that.
Stock image soldering iron, and just find how many people are holding it by the heated element.
Okay, that makes more sense.
That's my problem. Or lack thereof, I should say. Because he's doing it right. And that impressed me, because no one else is. He's got it by the grip, he doesn't have it by the metal.
Wow, that is really funny. There is a large amount of photos of people holding it where they would definitely melt their hand.
Told you.
There's actually this really great one where there's somebody they're holding it just improperly, and they're just staring at the camera, and it's really funny.
I mean, stock images are an entire rabbit hole all their own. But the soldering iron thing is something I associate with.
Yeah, no, that is fair. That is, wow, that is really funny.
Put it in the Discord. So yeah, we talked about him having the helmet off. He's soldering the crystals to the helmet. Of course, that's the right way to use them.
Well, I mean, they all were one thing, so they have to be made one thing again, obviously.
On a helmet.
On a helmet.
Because holding him in your hand is just inadequate. So back to the Turtles around the docks, and there's a couple of Joes just like ready to fuck them up. And if only brawls in New York really went like this, instead of some guy sneaking up behind you and elbowing you in the base of your skull to try to get you to black out, they're like rolling barrels and like swinging cranes and shit. These dudes are pretty resourceful. I also want to say that humans are becoming less hideous in this show.
Yeah,
progressively.
That is fair.
They don't look like monsters in this. Disproportionate nose.
I love the guy's like heart anchor tattoo.
You do? Because it's not very good. The borders are too thick.
No, that's why I love it. It's terrible.
But they roll out. Turtles are fighting. It's a pretty decent little fight scene. Short. They're resourceful using their equipment. And then the Turtles, of course, knock them into a pile of fish. And for what it's worth, in the late 80s, early 90s, as a child, I honestly thought that some of the worst fate that could beget a human being was to be knocked in 1, fertilizer, 2, garbage, or 3, a big pile of stinky fish. And these guys got it. It's just like when we were little. Like, I don't know about you, but I was deadly afraid of quicksand.
Oh, yeah.
Everywhere. It was just going to be quicksand everywhere. Watch your step. You could die.
They definitely, stories prepared us for something that we would almost certainly not encounter.
Enough with the comedy.
Okay, Shredder is about to finish the crystal noggin device, and Krang's communicator is propped up. Is that like on a pop socket or something?
It's gotta be, right? This is the second time he's done that.
It's another one of those things, like, did cell phones really do... Okay, so they had the brick phones, which basically stood on their own because they're fucking bricks. But, like, it's interesting to see some of these little technological nuances that are commonplace now, is it not?
Yeah. Oh, it's like, it's got a kickstand. Look at that.
It's got a kickstand. Who would have thought of putting a phone on a kickstand in the 80s? My next note just says, Shredder doesn't lock doors. Jesus fucking Christ.
He's on
because
a boat.
Turtles are just standing in... The Turtles are just standing in an open doorway. And it's not the first time.
Yeah.
Shredder, I'm so disappointed. I really think I could be a much better evil villain than Shredder, just because I'm detail-oriented.
There's no reason for him to believe that the Turtles wouldn't find him.
Yeah, that's the other thing. He knows that they have a tracker. Shut the door, man. He throws the helmet on, and this... All right, hold on. All right, let's talk about the mask.
Okay.
So he's got the helmet on, but before that, the mask, he keeps the face mask in his neckerchief. Let me say it again. He pulls up the full metal faceplate that he usually has, that he took off to weld or to solder the crystals onto his helmet. He pulls it back up. It comes out of his neckerchief.
Yeah, it comes out of his cloak, his cape.
Whatever. It should have sliced his throat open.
Well, because it's not metal.
Is it not?
It's supposed to be, but it's clearly not.
So this is the conversation we need to have. And legitimately, cloth versus metal mask, we've seen different iterations. And for my headcanon, from my childhood up until this day, Shredder is definitively wearing a full face metal helmet face mask. Like
yeah,
that.
Absolutely. That is what it's supposed to be.
But IDW rewrote that when he shows up basically wearing the exact same uniform as any other Foot Clan with the kabuto on his head. And that's it. And I actually thought that was kind of a neat little narrative because it shows that he's another ninja soldier, but he's heralded, right? He's prestigious. Everyone else basically has Shredder in full, like, regal armor compared to his foot soldiers.
Okay, I guess in IDW he's wearing it's a cloth mask.
It's a cloth, yeah, that's what I'm saying. He's got the same cloth mask that every other foot soldier has, and then he just basically puts a helmet over top of it.
Got it. Okay.
But every other Shredder, like the movie Shredder has metal mask.
Yeah, the original
the mask in the cartoon is silver, so I thought it was metal. 2003 definitively has a metal one. So does 2012. Every other comic iteration that I could recount, possibly a couple of the Archies slipped through the cracks. I vaguely remember some moments where his mask was questionable as far as its physiology.
Right, well, I feel like for a lot of them, the mask is actually just a part of the helmet.
It's always separated. Not in Rise, because it's just his face.
I don't think it's separate in, like, 2012.
2012 it definitely is, because there's an entire story arc about stealing the helmet. And in Rise, he's like a demon thing with like a face. He doesn't have a helmet. It's his face.
Right.
2003, it's definitely a metal helmet, but I don't recall any moments where he does separate them, so maybe that one there.
Yeah, I forget which one I was looking at.
I'm only correcting on 2012 because they specify that it's the kabuto and it is a separate part that's not the mask. It's the helmet. It is, like, they say it verbatim.
And, of course, the Michael Bay one is, like, a whole big thing.
That doesn't,
but that's a completely different
just
thing.
like in, like,
yeah,
a
he's in
fucking
a
Transformer.
Yeah. Yeah, most of them, it's removable. You are right.
I'm going to try to remember in this episode when we publish it to put a poll alongside for cloth versus metal mask Shredder. We want to hear your feedback. Or feel free to yell at us in Discord as always. Suddenly Shredder knows exactly how the Eye of Sarnath works.
Right, yeah, no trouble.
We spent several episodes talking about how he doesn't know how it works. That's in fact a plot point. And now he just does. He can transmutate anything into anything. So basically, Shredder has suddenly become Molecular Man from Marvel, and he can end the entire universe by accidentally triggering a subatomic chain reaction that folds time and space in on itself in a beautifully destructive black hole that will reset the entire Big Bang.
I love his explanation.
Which was?
Raph comes in and says, self-confident supervillain, ain't he? And he goes, you would be too if you had this. And then, like you said, he just goes into a full explanation about it.
And did you know it can transmute matter? With it, I can transform any substance into any form I wish.
No! How did you?
You can transmutate anything.
Almost anything, as we will find out.
Oh, that's a good point. But I mean, the consequences are dire. I don't know if you've ever read any Marvel arcs following Molecular Man, but it gets dark.
My only familiarity with him is from Secret Wars.
Well, yeah, that's where it starts.
But anytime you talk about transmutation, I just think of Full Metal Alchemist. So a whole lot of body parts are going to go missing after this episode.
All right, Shredder goes and uses the helmet, the Eye of Sarnath, to turn Baxter's Chinese takeout container logo, which is a red dragon, into a real dragon, and I'm calling it first appearance of Hothead.
I didn't even think of that.
I'm getting it on a technicality, and I'm living with it.
I like it. Let's go with it.
Eye of Sarnath continues fucking everything up. Leo's swords become ice cream, and hold on. He says...
Ice cream cones? Ew, yuck!
Is Leo lactose intolerant?
Maybe it was just like it was already getting on his hands. Like, I can't.
But I don't. Even if it's getting on your hands, ice cream is still delicious. Like, the only logical explanation I can have is that Leo's lactose intolerant.
Oh man, do you imagine if he ate it?
Ate his own sword.
He just eats the ice cream, and then when Shredder loses his helmet, he just gets stabbed from the inside.
If Shredder had turned Michelangelo's nunchucks into ice cream, we know he would have eaten them.
Oh, yeah.
And then he would not have nunchucks for the rest of the series. All I can think of at this point in this conversation is, like, Harry Carey...
Hey! If you were a hot dog and you were starving, would you eat yourself?
If your nunchucks turned into ice cream cones, would you eat them? I would.
Drown him in chocolate syrup.
I put rainbow sprinkles all over him.
Okay, so the dragon's flying around. I'm completely in another place right now.
Enough with the comedy.
Dragon's flying around, screeching at everybody. I desperately wanted to figure out if this was famous voice actor Frank Welker, and I can only assume, and I would legitimately bet every penny in my bank, that it was Frank Welker going... But I can't find credit for him. I didn't see it in the episode, and I couldn't find it on IMDb or any other listing. But if anybody knows for a fact, I'd love to hear about it. For my money, that was definitely Frank Welker, who showed up for 10 minutes of work and screamed into a microphone, collected his check, and went. As he does! As he should! He's fucking Frank Welker. But we got a pretty sweet fight here. Leo's got the dragon by the horns. He's going all never-ending story. Mikey's counterweighting the tail like a kite, and they fly off into the big blue. Shredder makes Raph's first sigh into a bouquet of flowers, and that was very sweet. And
I like that he could do anything. He could transmute this stuff into anything, and he just does like cheap magic tricks.
he could look at the turtles and turn them into primordial goo, like in the Super Mario Brothers movie. And this entire series would be over, but he doesn't. He makes flowers because he's a big old softy. That's the thing. We gotta. This Shredder is a big old softy.
Could have turned the size into acid.
He's a submissive and he's a big old softy. So we have what I could think might be the direct inspiration for the going to LaGuardia moment.
Yep.
You agree?
I got, in all caps, we got an actual "you're going to LaGuardia" moment.
With the exact same timbre, tone, and delivery, it's a penultimate LaGuardia moment, if you will.
It looks like a flying dragon with 2 turtles on its back.
Yep.
You're going to LaGuardia, right?
Blodgett driving the Channel 6 news van, by the way. His name's Blodgett, apparently. He's a Woody Allen ripoff. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Vernon.
Yep.
But yeah, for this episode, certainly the going to LaGuardia moment. We might have to rename this entire segment to the it looks like sort of a flying dragon with 2 turtles on its back moment, because it came first.
Also, what the fuck is in Mikey's nunchucks?
So, all right, the dragon's flying. Leo's got it by the horns. Mikey throws his physics-breaking nunchucks again from the tail, goes up around.
Yep.
On the front of the nose and the snout, and wraps it up so he can stop breathing fire. Is this why the UK edited out the nunchucks? Because they knew kids would figure out how to slay the dragons in Great Britain? I've never been to London, by the way. I'm only assuming that they have dragons.
I'm so happy you brought this up, because I was definitely going to. Mikey is a magician. Like, he is an actual wizard. He is doing things with his nunchucks that should not be possible. I don't understand why they have any problem with anything, because he has full physics-breaking control over these instruments.
The thing I'm most upset by this is, why is Donatello not speaking up? If anybody should be like, hold up! That's not how mass distribution works. It should be Donatello.
Yeah, Donatello should be lampshading this at every opportunity.
I would love like a DVD commentary style of every episode, just narrated by Donatello. Like, yeah, that wouldn't work. So Mikey climbs up the dragon onto the neck area with Leonardo. Apparently this is too much for the dragon. And the dragon starts going down because they're too heavy.
Yep.
I looked it up. The turtles are canonically between 160 and 180 pounds. Fight me. If that dragon can't hold up that much weight on its flying back when it's already like the length of 3 sedans, that's a wimpy-ass dragon.
Right, well, it's already been carrying their weight.
Yeah, he was on the tail, so why would redistributing it to if anything, that's going to make it easier to get lift. The whole point of counterweighting a tail on a kite is to make sure that you can keep control over it.
I don't know. That stood out to me too. It was just like, what? Okay, sure. They just needed a reason for the dragon to come down.
Yeah, they did. Even though they kind of didn't, which we'll unveil in a minute.
Well, they needed it to like redirect back towards the boat.
Fair, but they did not need it to come down. In fact, they needed the opposite.
Correct.
Blodgett's driving off with the Channel 6 van, makes Vernon look like fucking Arnold Schwarzenegger in comparison. Obviously, he's fired. I do love Raph's reaction when Shredder turns his other sigh into a snake.
At least he finally thought of something that was like actually dangerous.
Actually threatening, yeah. Instead of just, getting his rocks off. But that line delivery was almost instantly trumped by James Avery's greatest acting moment in his entire career.
Yes.
Can we roll the clip?
Whoa!
Oh my god, I love it so much. It's like
He's a consummate actor, but like, what happened there?
I just love the whole setup. This guy is a master ninja, and he just like backs himself into a goddamn pool. And he has the moment of when you play the Sega Genesis Sonic games and you bring him just to the edge where he just starts like trying like balancing back and forth because he's losing his balance. Like whoa, whoa, whoa.
The swinging arms and all. Yeah. That's exactly what it is. But okay, they must have had multiple takes of that. Was that really the best one?
Oh my God! Give me the deleted scenes. I want every take of that.
I'd love to be a fly on the wall in general to just have seen any of the behind the curtain voice acting room for this show. Any of it. All right, so Donnie knocks the helmet off Shredder with the Iron Sarnath on it. Dragon go poof. Leo and Mikey go splat. Splash. Because this abandoned ship that has been for sale floating around in the Brooklyn harbor has a pool in it that's filled and well kept, but also they're surrounded by the ocean.
Yep.
But they aim for the pool.
I mean, honestly, for the height they fell, probably be dead regardless of where they hit.
I mean, all they got to do is land on their backs. They'd be fine. They're turtles. It's water.
Yeah, but I mean, with the pool, like, they're hitting the bottom.
For sure. No matter what. Honestly, it would have displayed, like, those two roughly shy of 200-pound, dense as hell figures falling into that pool probably would have emptied it. From, like, 100 feet in the air, whatever the hell they were.
I do like the commercial break right as they're falling. Build a little bit of tension, like, oh my God, what's going to happen? They're going to die. And then they land in the pool when they come back immediately.
That's a unique thing that I do want to point out, too, that, you know, a lot of shows do the cliffhanger thing. The Turtles really did it well. They really had it down to a science. Like, they had it written so perfectly that it was in such a formula that you knew that this was a suspense moment before they really discover what their mission is. Roll commercials, and then this is a moment right before Shredder gotches them. Roll commercial. Every episode is kind of a perfect formula.
Yeah, and it's that perfect kind of tension for a kid show where something looks like it's going to be bad, but it's immediately resolved. Because let me tell you, I have watched many shows with my 4-year-old now, and anytime something remotely scary is happening, she is freaking out. She is genuinely scared for the characters. Be like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. It's like, it's okay. They will resolve this in seconds.
You don't remember doing that as a kid?
I mean, like, I'm sure I did. 100% I did. I am not criticizing her by, you know, in any stretch of the imagination. But now I understand that, like, you know, like, it's one thing to remember, like, oh yeah, I guess I did get scared at this stuff. But, like, now the format makes sense.
All right, I can give you that. I'm trying to think of moments when I was a kid. I think a lot of my fear was born out of, like, the Ghostbusters cartoon. Because it just was visually terrifying.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And, I mean, they're surrounded by death. That's the whole premise of the show. I think that show scared way more out of me than Turtles ever could.
And it was real.
The real Ghostbusters. Blodgett, you dunce. You drove $1 million broadcast van into the friggin' Hudson. And then everybody just kind of bails. Like that's the cherry on top to this scene was just Blodgett drowns the Channel 6 van.
Yep. He gets Shredder's helmet, and then the police come, and the Turtles are like, whoa, we gotta get out of here. The police don't like us. And Raph is like, yeah, blue doesn't go too well with green. Hey, Leo's standing right next to you, you asshole.
I never thought about that as a slight, but maybe we could interpret that as the rivalry between Leo and Raph that is not really present in the '87 animated series.
Leo doesn't even react. I at least thought there'd be like a side-eye animation in there, but no, it's just completely like, oh yeah, he was just talking about the police. I get the reference. Like, come on, dude, choose your words more carefully.
Great catch. I did not immediately jump to that conclusion. All right, so Blodgett goes home. He's commiserating with my new favorite supporting character in the entire series, Mortimer, the adorable little kitten with a wildly out of proportion head. The kitten pushes a little book on tape, a little cassette tape towards Blodgett, and it's called How to Fix Your Messed Up Life. And I looked this up. The author is listed as Walt Kubiak, and Walt Kubiak is the head of the animation department for Ninja Turtles at CBS.
Nice.
Thought that was a nice little Easter egg.
A couple things about Blodgett. One, love that he's just wearing the helmet casually inside his apartment. Two, dude loses 4 jobs in a year and could still afford that apartment.
Assumably in Midtown? Yeah, also impressive.
And then here's my, like, crazy-ass reference for the week. Did this scene in particular, but this character in general, make you think of any other pop culture character?
Just Woody Allen.
Okay, because for me, I had to look up when this comic came out, because this whole scene, especially with Blodgett and his cat, and the cat, like, helping him, like, you know, try out this self-help book, audiobook thing, blah, blah, blah. This whole thing reminded me so much of Stanley Ipkiss in The Mask.
Ooh. Nice tie-in. Not just because they're green.
And, I mean, like, the whole setup with, like, guy finds mystical thing that is going to solve all of his problems, but also causes problems by getting him attention that he doesn't necessarily want. The pet that is, like, best friend and is, like, trying to be helpful and does things that, like, a pet shouldn't be able to do, but does. Like, there's so much about this setup that reminded me of The Mask, and I guess more like the movie The Mask, because that's what I was familiar with.
Yeah, it definitely has nothing to do with the comic book.
But, like, the comic book didn't come out until 1991.
I mean, all right, great observation.
And this is 1988.
Great, incredible observation. I will say that I do kind of feel like the sad sack whose only friend is his pet is a trope.
Oh, absolutely.
But you are definitely drawing some great parallels with specifically how the animal has directly influenced the character's ultimate downfall.
Right? It just, like, it was one of those things that, like, I had to look up because I was like, oh man, is this an homage to The Mask? That's what I thought it was. Like, I was like, oh cool, they're pulling in something here, like they pulled in Little Shop of Horrors in that one episode, you know? Like,
yeah.
And that's, like, a fun thing that you get to do as a writer, was, like, make homages to the media that you like and care about and it influenced you. And so I just assumed that, like, hey, here's this animated show that's based off of a 1980s comic. Maybe they were also homaging another comic, but the Mask hadn't happened yet.
I mean, The Mask was created in the early 80s. Actually, the Mask as a comic book character is older than the Turtles, but specifically that moment, because of the way the character... for anybody listening, the comic book version of The Mask is so very much not the movie version of The Mask. It literally only an appearance. Do they at all coexist? Because... Yeah, don't if you really like the Jim Carrey movie, probably don't go read those books because they're violent. They're very violent.
Oh, so okay. See, I feel like such an idiot now because I looked up before recording when it came out, and it says the original trilogy of The Mask Returns, and The Mask Strikes Back was published as a limited series from 1991 to 1995. But if I had bothered to read the whole article, I would have seen that the creator, actually, Mike Richardson, created it in February 1982.
Yeah,
so
I mean,
it's totally possible that there were, like, some parallels, even though obviously it's a completely different character than the movie one that I'm thinking of.
Listen, I'm not trying to dunk on you, but The Mask was part of that group of 80s comics.
Yeah.
That genre of 80s Bronze Age hyper-violent comics that Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird went, this is fucking lame, let's make fun of it. That was a contributing factor, because, yeah, the character did exist for a long time. But, to your point, the most notable Mask story parts did occur in the 90s.
Okay.
Including the movie, which is completely dissociative to the entire comic series.
Man, this is kind of what I love about what we do, and, like, the podcast, because it actually gets me to, like, look this kind of stuff up, and I think I'm just looking at straight up the Wikipedia. I did not realize that Mike Richardson, who created The Mask, was the owner, like, the originator of Dark Horse Comics.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Dark Horse, built largely on indie hyper-violent creations like The Mask, but also then, of course, they were the sole holder for Star Wars after Marvel released them in the 70s or early 80s when they were severely bankrupt.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Pretty cool.
Comic history. There we go. A whole nother podcast for us. Doing this until we die.
This is why you listen. We bring in all these different threads together.
And then an hour and a half to 2 hours later, you go, wasn't this supposed to be about Ninja Turtles?
So Blodgett's in his house. He is listening to the self-help tape as prompted by the cat Mortimer. And what a great name.
Not as good as Clunk.
Definitely not.
Forever the greatest Ninja Turtle kitten.
But he uses the helmet accidentally while he is listening to the tape, and his couch turns into a limousine in the middle of his home. And then he's talking about completing his comic book collection, and suddenly, like, there's just like a million comics that look like full books for some reason.
Yeah, why are they hardcovers? Did somebody miss the notes in the script, or did the animation team legitimately not know what comic books were?
And then we cut away from Blodgett for a second to see the update for the Turtles. The Turtles are talking to Splinter. Splinter is once again just spelling out Shredder's plan. He knows everything he's going to do.
I mean, they're ancient rivals. He has an inkling.
And then the Turtles are getting in their new disguise. They're back to pizza delivery people, and they drop a name which I think is amazing, because they've been using this crystal tracker that they got from the alien for 4 episodes, and now they suddenly decide to give it a name, and it's the Zarnothometer.
I totally breezed right over that. You're right, though.
The really negative news is that we've lost the Zarnovener. I don't even know how to say it. The Zarnovener?
Zarnometer, yeah, you're right.
And if Shredder finds that thing and figures out what it is, he'll for sure beat us to the helmet. Like, okay, yeah, true, I get it, but, like, that name was such a mouthful. And then, like, everybody calls it that. This is, like, the first of at least 2 incidences in this episode. Well, I guess actually it's the second, because Shredder definitely should not have known what the helmet does when all 3 fragments are joined into the full crystal.
But he did.
But somehow he did. There was never a name for the tracker, but now there is. And then there's one more moment later on where it's just like, wait, what?
I mean, it kind of works, because I just kind of went, yeah, the Zarnometer, sure, yeah.
Oh, it totally works. You knew exactly what they were talking about.
You did.
It absolutely works. But it's just one of those things where it's like for 4 episodes, they were walking all around New York City, going back between Manhattan and Brooklyn, like 100 times. And they're just like, you know what? Let's give this thing a name so we're not just calling it It.
That's exactly their train of thought in the production side of things. I'm sure they got to a point where it's like, do we want to make this a toy? Maybe we should make this a toy. We need to have a name to put on the box. Zarnoth.
The Zarnovener.
Zarbdomometer.
And yeah, Mikey, of course, tries to eat the pizza, and Leo has to scold him and be like, don't eat the props.
Don't eat the props. I want to say that our turtle boys are dressed up for the second time as pizza delivery boys, and for all the models of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle action figures, there was never pizza delivery boy Mikey, and that is a crime.
Yeah. Real missed opportunity there.
For all the things that they dressed them up as, firefighters, Universal monsters, Star Trek, why is there never really a full-blown pizza fanatic turtle or something like that? The closest we got were the ones that had like the cartoon faces, and they were loaded with like the chest shooters. They're like the pizza thrower vehicle, but in action figure size. That's the closest we ever got of turtles fully embracing their pizza lifestyle in toy form.
Oh yeah, I was saying that.
But we never had them in like a delivery boy hat. That was a huge loss.
That is really weird. I'm looking on. I googled what you're talking about. Those are wacky looking figures.
I mean, one of my friends had one, and it kind of worked.
Yeah, that's fair.
I don't know. I don't think there was a single Ninja Turtle toy out there I did not like. But yeah, pizza delivery boy Mikey would have been a thing. Should have been a thing.
Come on, Playmates, do better. They cut to Shredder's hideout. Shredder's new hideout, I guess. I don't know. This one has a gym for him to work out in. He immediately destroys the bag.
Okay, Steve Rogers.
I can do this all day.
Yeah, I know.
He's still just wearing his mask without the helmet.
He's so pissy, though. He's so pissy right here. It's so funny when he throws the Shredder tantrums.
I said silence, you blithering fool! I'm thinking. I can't be bothered with your ridiculous toys at a time like this.
Yeah, and he's just like, he refuses to listen to Baxter, just putting him down. We're getting more of Baxter finally growing that spine and being like, you know what? Screw this guy. I can do this myself.
But this is also the moment where we have to talk about the mask.
Again.
No, sincerely, about what the hell is going on with how it attaches to his head.
It's a cloth. Like, it's literally tied in the back.
It's got fabric pulls. You called it a goiter earlier, but he's got fabric pulls.
Yeah.
But it's still shiny and silver.
Yeah. Yeah, he got a cloth mask made glittery so that it would shine with his helmet.
I guess, but I don't know. They don't really ever definitively.
Saying that made me feel like, wow, this Shredder is truly pathetic.
It does, I don't know.
Like, here's this guy, he's just covered in metal and knives from head to toe, and he's like, you know what? My outfit's just not complete yet. I need one more thing. Here's what's missing.
I prefer considering that entire mask and helmet pair fully solid metal. I am really struggling with whatever this episode is trying to convey to us because none of it makes sense.
Oh, no, it doesn't make sense. And yes, obviously that part, the part that covers his nose and mouth is supposed to be metal. 100%. I'm just saying that what they are showing in this episode is that it is explicitly not. Because he picks it up like a scarf or like a medical mask.
I reject this observation.
Okay. Sure. They animate fabric folds in it. I'm looking at a still right now where, like, underneath his nose, right where his mouth would be, there's a diagonal line to show the fabric moving. It's fabric.
My headcanon is it is some weird Dimension X material that Krang manufactured for him that is solid metal and cloth at the same time.
All right.
Let's just end the discussion there because there's no right answer.
Also in that same still, I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be like shadows from him lifting his arms, but it just looks like he's got some real bad pit stains.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, 11:05 on my timeline, if you want to get a still of it. It's a real O'Doyle rules moment for the Shredder.
Doyle rule.
Oh, it does look like pit stains. Also, his, like, pose. He's such a good sniveling, sneering villain. All right, so we're in the apartment with Blodgett. He's making wishes, and Baxter shows up.
And we get the best line of the episode, I think. Blodgett is trying to use the helmet to make gold so that he will be rich. It's not working. And he's like, that didn't work. I wonder why. And from just off screen, Baxter enters his apartment and says,
Because you're an idiot, that's why.
Because he climbed up the fire escape outside of his apartment building and no one stopped him along the way. And he's just lurking outside being a complete creep.
he's just waiting for the right moment to drop a sick burn on this poor fool.
This moment for me, though, is far more impactful in his choice of weaponry.
Oh, yeah. Because, again, we get weird Baxter technology. And this isn't like spy glasses that show you what's behind you. This is a gun, again, a gun that could have easily shot this guy. But no, it shoots out an arm and a leg.
An attached arm and a leg.
That literally kick this man in the ass.
And knock him over and then wrap him up. But all I could think of was the damn arcade game. Because for the last 20 years, my biggest exposure to Baxter the Fly has been facing and refacing him in various video game incantations where he shows up as a fly and has the gooey glue handgun on Big Apple 3 a.m. At the end of the bridge. I, for the life of me, did not remember that this was a canonical weapon that he actually used. And now I just feel like an idiot because I went, holy shit. For this entire scene, like I completely tuned out and was just having a minor revelation.
Yep, yeah.
That Baxter the Fly always had a fly swatting hand.
He ties him up and then transmutes it into ropes, which, like, oh my god, I love this gun so much because it's the same gun. He just has different settings for closed disintegrator and stretchy arm and leg.
It is the same gun?
I'm pretty sure it is. I mean, he's wearing a lab coat. He could have multiple guns under there for all I know.
That's what I would have thought, but hold on, I'm skimming back.
All right, while you're skimming, I'm gonna rant.
I got it. It is the same gun. What the hell?
There we go.
The MacGuffin rifle. I mean, okay, so Baxter shows up, fucks up everything for Blodgett. At least he's got enough to read while he's laying there.
Hey, Baxter, that's a fancy gun you got there. What does it do? Anything I want it to. Does it shoot bullets? No.
Can it kill me? Not likely. But then Baxter does ditch. He ditches the tracker, the Sarnabatron, whatever.
Yep.
Fucking.
The Zarnophometer.
But then he also goes on to find another abandoned warehouse.
Yeah, man. It's New York City in the 80s.
I really just kind of think that Baxter is moonlighting as a real estate agent because he knows where all the hotspots are. And then, of course, he uses space magic to make a Taj Mahal for some reason.
Yeah, he needs a castle to show everybody how brilliant he is. And so he uses the helmet to turn the abandoned warehouse into the Taj Mahal in the middle of New York City.
The Taj Mahal, notably comprised of several million tons of gold.
Yep.
As long as we need to observe this.
Oh, yeah.
Because he could have made any castle or any palace.
Yeah. Multiple times. I think it's multiple times in this episode. It can make gold. It just can't make other things into gold.
Never really thought about it like that, but yeah, you're right. Good observation.
Like, once it makes the gold, it can't transmute gold. Which is just like the weirdest genie rule. You know, like the genie has 3 wishes, but you can't wish for more wishes. It's like, well, the helmet can make anything, but once you make gold, it cannot change that gold. So be really careful what you want that gold to look like.
This is an entire discussion in itself is like absurd comic book / superhero MacGuffins. Like Green Lantern's greatest weakness is the color yellow.
Yep.
And wood. Wood. That why? 'Cause.
Yeah.
At least Superman had kryptonite where it's like it was exclusive. Green Lantern's fucking afraid of wood.
That's like everyone makes fun of Aquaman. It's like, dude, here's a guy who can't be around like the Pittsburgh Pirates.
That might be the deepest cut we've had on this show so far. Wow! Have you been saving that?
I just made that up.
Impressive.
I got one more thing while we're still talking about the Taj Mahal, and that's right beforehand. The way that the turtles find Baxter is that they are currently on a rooftop looking for the helmet. Which, to be fair, they don't know where the helmet is. They've got to look everywhere. I get that. They are on all fours on a roof looking for a foot-tall helmet. Dude, you can see that thing while you're standing. You don't need to get... It didn't shrink.
I guess. Emphasis. Exaggeration. Cartoons. That's what cartoons are all about, Daniel.
I know. It's still funny.
It is funny. I do love, though, that this is another instance where the turtles egregiously do not use their disguises at all.
Yeah.
Even a little bit. Even like... We kind of showed up, and you recognized us. Uh-oh! It was just like they walked into the physical space where they could be visibly spotted by the villains, and the villain's like, nope.
I guess, like, once there's a Taj Mahal, they're just like, well, whatever. We're not the weirdest thing anymore.
It's just like, if they went to all this trouble as a production studio animation team to dress them up without getting merchandise off of it, why did they fucking dress them up?
Yeah. And it's really funny, too, because, like, it's definitely a feeling of, like, well, the building is now the weirdest thing, so let's just do whatever. Because they don't even change, like, in an alleyway or something. They're literally they're just next to people.
They just rip them off! Worst ninjas ever. So, oh shit, Clayface shows up?
Yep.
Made from a billboard cowboy, I guess?
Yep. There is absolutely no connection to here's a billboard of a cowboy with a lasso, and now here's a glue monster.
Yeah, it is glue, isn't it? Yeah. I guess that makes a little more sense. But it looks like Clayface from Batman.
Oh, yeah.
And what does Baxter immediately ask for?
Oh, turtle soup. There we go.
Turtle soup. Why do they always ask for turtle soup? There's several ways to prepare turtle.
Is there?
There is. There absolutely is. You can have deep fried turtle nuggets. There is a dish that's basically a form of gumbo that is a turtle gravy with rice.
Huh.
And then there's turtle etouffee.
Oh, you learn something new every day.
Those are the most common ways to prepare turtle meat, specifically snapping turtle meat. That's not soup. And there are several soup and stew recipes. I don't know why I'm so excited about this. I don't want to eat any of these.
Well, the thing that bothers me the most about the whole turtle soup comment is the lip smacking sound that he makes.
Make me some turtle soup.
Like, I didn't need that.
No, we didn't at all. That
Take it back.
Yeah. I would. That's an undo.
I would like to return this, waiter.
Yeah, that was upsetting. Mortimer to the rescue again.
Yep, gets the knot out on Blodgett. The ropes that were transmuted onto him from I guess he's out of rug now. Sorry, guy. It would have transmuted back, but it'll have a nice cut in it from the rope being cut.
That rug really tied the room together, did it not?
Fucking A.
Immediately finds a Zarnovator in the trash, and we have all of our interested parties on a collision course.
But he calls it a Geiger counter.
Which, I mean, like, it's probably the smartest thing.
It's pronounced Geiger counter.
Okay.
Just gonna be that guy for a second.
I will be totally honest and thought it was pronounced Geiger. So.
That's because Ghostbusters also pronounced it wrong.
Okay, well, then I have an excuse. It's not my own ignorance, it's the Ghostbusters.
It's the 80s. Glue Monster.
I mean, this whole fight scene is really great because, like, anytime the turtles are fighting some kind of non-human, that means they get to use their weapons.
True, I agree. This is another really good fight scene. It's another fairly brief one. They're pretty every fight scene in this series condensed to about a minute.
Oh, yeah. And I think the best part about this fight scene is that you could tell the animators were excited, or the writers were excited. They're like, hey, cool, we came up with a reason for the turtles to face non-humans so they could use their weapons again. And they didn't realize that, like, it makes their weapons look totally pointless.
Which is why the first thing the monster does is disarm them.
Right. That, like, they're like, cool, we get, like, a really great, like, hero shot of them all with their weapons, and Mikey takes his eyes off the game for a couple seconds. He's spinning his nunchuck, and he gets glued to a wall. And then Leo runs over and tries to free him, and he just uselessly swings his swords over his head. It does nothing.
And he says,
I'll set you free!
Don't panic, Michelangelo! And then we get Raph's joke.
Gosh, you're a regular Abe Lincoln.
I didn't really get that. Is it just because he's...
Because Abe Lincoln did the Emancipation Proclamation.
Oh.
That's gotta be the reference.
Is that really where they went with that?
Right? It's super weird.
Yikes. That's a little insensitive, Raphael.
Like, it's such a weird line for a kid's show.
Boy, if I ever get Rob Paulson alone for an interview again, I'm going to ask him about that one.
What did you think about this line? Like, oh boy.
Everyone's getting smoked or stuck or whatever. Baxter's got the high ground. And then Big Daddy Shredder is here and he's mad.
Yep.
So now the Shredder and Turtles have to face off against Baxter and a big pile of ranch dressing.
Okay, I know I've been calling out a lot of like the lines in this episode, but there were some really well written lines. I gotta say, I really enjoyed Shredder's entrance here.
If you admit that I, Baxter Stockman, have accomplished what Shredder could not.
I'll bear that in mind, Baxter, when I deliver your eulogy, you traitorous vermin!
Oh, man, that was so. I was like, damn, that's a good line.
Yeah, that's gold writing right there, and an even better delivery.
And he's just like running full speed onto this scene.
Oh yeah, he was on a warpath. Like, Baxter would have been dead if the Turtles did not intervene.
Oh, absolutely. And he takes care of that monster, like, no problem.
Yeah, I like the part where, like, all the Turtles are stuck to the wall, cuts to Shredder, throws glue at him. Cut, no thanks. Back to the Turtles at the wall.
All right, are you ready for the second monster?
I'm ready for the second monster.
We get Electro.
Not even subtly.
It's just a giant electric monster that came out of the wall.
I mean, elemental monsters are nothing new.
There did seem to be some gold in the thing that he transmuted, but it wasn't a lot, so I'll give him a pass.
Gold is an incredible conductor.
You know what else is a good conductor?
Yeah?
All the Turtles' weapons that they are blocking lightning with.
Not Donatello's?
Not Donatello's.
Donatello's safe. And Mikey's grounded for what it's worth. He's conducting, but he's not carrying.
There's this really great shot of the Turtles trying to take cover from the electric monster while they figure out, like, what can we do to stop this thing? And Donnie and Leo are just, like, catching electric blasts out of the air. And I'm like, Leo, what are you doing? You have two metal swords. You'd be dead.
His grips are all their grips are insulated. We know this. I like this part because, yeah, like, Donatello really does something actually smart.
Yeah, they pull up the rug on the ground and cut it so they could use it as a
he straight up says insulation.
Yeah, there we go.
And that's the smart part of it. Like, they could have used anything in that room in a cartoon context to block electricity. Like, oh, we're deflecting it with our...
Yeah, like their metal swords.
Yeah, but they actually pull up the carpet and say, we're going to insulate. And it's like, oh, that's actually exactly what you should do in this scenario. As someone who's been exposed to extraordinary electricity, yeah, that's what you do.
That was a very good line by Donnie. Very in line with the character.
Yeah. And effective, because they rush the damn thing, and a lot unfolds around them to kind of course correct, but at the same time, they're safe through the entire thing. So yeah, it was legit smart.
It was a great strategy. They didn't get a chance to defeat the monster because Shredder beats Baxter, takes the helmet back, and so all of Baxter's creations disappear.
Again.
Shredder gets to say so much for your blob monster twice. Yeah. Just really like that line, I guess.
My favorite moment in the episode right here is just Player 7 has entered the battle. Blodgett shows up trying to get the wishing stone back. Oh wait, never mind. Fails instantly.
There's like so many little things in this part that I love because, like, yeah, Shredder gets the helmet back, but he gets it back by poking Baxter in the eye.
Yeah, there's a lot of like little Three Stooges things going on in this series so far that I definitely don't recall. So Baxter is trying to use the Eye of Sarnath to make the minaret, which for the record is great vocabulary. I had to actually look up exactly what that meant because you can kind of see it on screen, but it's specifically the definition of a minaret is a tall, slender tower, typically part of a mosque.
Yeah.
Not necessarily the Indian-based Taj Mahal, but hey, close. But it still applies. Like, that is exactly what an architect would have called that. So, great vocab.
Yep.
That obviously doesn't work. Shredder deduces that the helmet doesn't work on gold. Now, we've been talking about this already, but this is the first time it's said out loud in the episode.
Yeah.
With little to no logic behind it. He just knows that.
Yep. I don't know. He just,
He didn't deduce it. He just knows it.
Well, just like he knew how to use it in the first place, I guess. It's such a weird thing, though, because, like, again, like, I know we already talked about this, but the Taj Mahal as a whole was created from the building. So Baxter changes the building into the Taj Mahal, creating gold, but he then can't manipulate the gold that he created, which Again, it's just
transmutating gold. Yeah.
just weird rules.
There's no laws in this. This is the Wild West.
We get a little bit of a face-off between Shredder and Baxter. Shredder gets past the blob monster. He's able to, so much for your blob monster, says it again as soon as he gets the helmet back. He's able to stop Baxter very easily. He just pokes him in the eye, takes the helmet back. Baxter trying to stand up to his boss and ultimately failing miserably.
But in the process of Shredder eliminating the glue monster and the electric monster, his ultimate solution or reprise is put the turtles in a bubble.
Yep. Yeah, he keeps it simple.
Just a bubble.
No monsters this time, no elaborate death traps, just gonna put you in a bubble, it's gonna shrink. Eventually you'll all get crushed together.
Hopefully. I'm gonna leave and not confirm this.
And we as the audience already know that won't work.
But I trust all of you will die.
Yeah, we know as the audience that won't work because in the Incredible Shrinking Turtles, they were tiny in a jar, and then they got blowed up to regular size and just broke through the glass bottle.
There wasn't really even suspense to like the bubble thing either. They were just in it. They say it's shrinking, but it doesn't really show it shrinking.
Yep. And like Leo called Splinter and April like 20 minutes ago.
Oh yeah, he calls in reinforcements, and they show up just in the nick of time. I do love the moment when Shredder turns the turtle's carpet insulator and like goes full-blown Aladdin.
Yep, just makes a flying carpet and decides that the best way that he can take over the world is by starting with New York City, and he's going to do it by destroying a bridge.
Hey, Shredder, honey, baby, sweetheart. We've had this conversation. We've talked about this. Krang wants you to stop the turtles. The turtles are not on the bridge, sweetheart. They're not on the bridge. They're just not. I hate to be the one to tell you this 30 years later, but they're not.
Yep. Could have stayed and finished the job, but instead you got caught up by your own ego and decided to do the supervillain thing and take out a bridge.
The interstate bridge.
Yeah.
So the George Washington.
Yep.
Well,
there's already other villains on flying objects taking out the other bridges, so he had to go for the GW.
Other villains on what?
Like Green Goblin with the Brooklyn Bridge.
and then Bane with every other one.
Right, exactly.
So we mentioned the backup arrives just too late. Splinter shows up and pops the bubble with the walking stick. Just pokes it once. Shredder sucks.
Right. I mean, yep. Did the turtles not have their weapons in that moment? Did none of them think like, hey, we got sharp pointy things, at least two of us?
We got literal sharpened blades enough to cut flesh, and we're going to wait for our dad to show up with his wooden stick. And then Splinter pops this bubble, and the wall behind the turtles collapses.
Yep, because it's not a Ninja Turtles episode if April isn't in peril.
Just to be rescued by the saddest sack, Mr. Blodgett. So good on him.
Yep.
And then he relays the whole gold mulligan. And then April has a great idea.
I just love this. Oh, my God. She has a friend who's a curator at the Museum of Natural History. They got her friend to give them golden shields.
I still don't believe that they got given anything. I think she just kind of name dropped because she wanted to pull like a power play, but they just went and stole that shit.
Absolutely. There's not a curator on this planet that would be like, yeah, okay, I guess you could take them out for a little bit.
It is canon that the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles broke into the Natural History Museum and stole Roman artifacts. So now they all have gold Roman shields.
Yep.
And they're flying in turtle blimp.
I got 2 lines for this. It's the first line is take the turtle blimp, and the second one is destroy the turtle blimp.
Yeah, and that's exactly what happens in the next 30 seconds. Is they show up in the blimp, they disengage the glider, and then Raphael throws his sai into the blimp and pops it.
Yeah, that was the plan.
End of the blimp. That was the plan. End of the blimp. I mean, I guess if you had left a hydrogen-inflated dirigible above the skyline in New York City, it would float up into the atmosphere and destroy itself. But their point is to use it as a drop net blanket to take out these 3 giant golem army rock monster things that Shredder has conjured up with the Eye of Sarnath.
Yeah, like he was inspired by the rock soldiers of Krang, and so he made his own.
Clearly. But they have all of like a second and a half of screen time.
Yeah, they don't do anything. They get smothered by the turtle blimp. It's like, all right, I guess our job's done.
They're gliding towards the ground in the blimp, and then Shredder.
The turtles alive!
And I just, like, yeah, dude, you put him in a soap bubble. What do you want?
And here we have our final moment of, oh, is that what that does? There was just new information delivered at the very tail end of this 4-episode arc, which is that the crystal tracker that the turtles had been using was designed to destroy the fragments of the eye when they were brought together, and when both of them are close to each other, it creates a bomb.
Oh, okay.
Right? And I was like, I was writing down my notes while watching the episode, and I was like, I feel like that's something I would remember. It's just like, conveniently, it's a bomb now, so Shredder has to throw it away, because this whole episode has been the turtles failing upwards. They fail at getting the crystal. They fail at retrieving the helmet. Blodgett gets the helmet. Baxter gets the helmet. Shredder gets the helmet. Literally, the only thing that is stopping the Shredder from winning the day is the fact that he took both the tracker and the helmet at the end. Otherwise, the turtles would not have stopped him.
That's true. I mean, I like when they dive off the glider, they knock the helmet down.
Oh, that's a great shot.
Like, the chaos ensues, but I love that Shredder full body dives on it, like a kid about to have their puppy taken out back and shot.
Yeah, or like Steve Rogers diving on the grenade.
Yeah. But in a much less noble way.
Yeah.
So the explosion proceeds. They tell Shredder it's going to blow, and he throws the whole thing into the river, and it explodes in such fantastic exorbitancy that it should have completely drowned all of Manhattan in a tsunami.
Oh my god, it is a huge explosion.
Enormous. And the seawalls in Manhattan are not high, for those of you unaware.
They hold on to the bridge, and they're like, wow, that was close. And Raph's like, we were born in water, don't you remember? Like, you weren't born in an explosion.
But of course, that gives enough opportunity for Shredder to disappear. And then the turtles say, he'll be back, etc., etc., etc.
I like that they're not, under the impression that, oh, man, I guess the explosion got him. They're just like, well, we know he'll be back this time.
By now, they should have figured it out. So, in the epilogue, we're all watching the news. We're back at Blodgett's. He's rehired, thanks to saving April O'Neil's life. The TV switches between a Smurf parody ripoff, Alvin and the Chipmunk parody ripoff, and Rambo Turtle parody ripoff?
Yep. I was like, what is this, military Leo guy? And there's even a moment where, Raph puts the remote down, gets Donnie's attention, and is like, hey, look at this thing.
If they're going to do a Rambo ripoff, they should have at least made it Raph, because Rambo wears a red bandana.
Yeah. I just still think it's really funny that, I don't know, there's a detail there that is really nice, that the turtles were looking at it and being like, oh, wow, that's weird. Hey, Donnie, look at this. Isn't this cool?
Never addressed again.
Oh, yeah. No, of course it wouldn't be. But I was prepared this week. I was waiting for the, okay, what's the on-brand thing that is going to take everybody surprised at the end of this episode, and then it's going to be a joke. And they didn't really do it.
No, they didn't really do it. This is the first kind of departure of, oh, we just fought robots. Mikey's got a toy robot at the end. Womp womp. The joke is that Blodgett wants to take them all to dinner, and Donnie and Raph kind of give him a nasty look. He's as in we're fucking anthropomorphic turtles, dude. We can't just go walking into sacks. But April also reminds him that he can't take us all out for dinner because he's got to pay for the van that he drowned in the Hudson River.
Yep.
And that being done on 1980s level associate pay in New York City. Good luck, bud.
Oh yeah, he is. This is indentured servitude.
So he's going to cheap out and do what? Order pizza.
Get him pizza.
Everybody's happy. Cowabunga.
That all depends on how fast you stock your pizza.
This is a hands-down cowabunga episode for me as far as our rating goes. Top tier. We have the conclusion of our second major story arc, major lore added to the 1987 Fred Wolf Ninja Turtles, science fiction, space drama, loosely knitted together, but effective.
Yeah.
This is without a doubt a cowabunga in my eyes.
I think so. It was really fun. It was a really great payoff to what was a bit of a like twisty road in terms of quality. Like it started off really strong, got lost a little bit in the middle of the woods, but made its way out very successfully.
Very well said. What is our takeaway as far as our moral obligation to this episode?
So the thing that I pulled away from it was to respect your employees, because the whole thing is like Baxter getting fed up with Shredder and how Shredder treats him, and so he tries to stake it out on his own. Blodgett even like it was sort of weird that they introduced this character who, like, if you thought Vernon was the one who was getting like proverbially beat down on at the studio, like literally last episode he was getting made fun of and insulted by his boss. Well, here's an even more pathetic person.
You like Vern? How do you like Beta Vern?
and now he gets the helmet and gets to have some kind of power and finds a new side to himself. He doesn't get to keep the helmet, but he does stand up and help save April at the end. So I like to think he learns a little bit about himself. He doesn't get overwhelmed by the power. He becomes a better person for it.
Yeah, that's a great takeaway. I had a really hard time kind of coming up with what our lesson was in the episode, but yeah, it's a kind of an interesting take on it, because like the important takeaway in my eyes in this one is, Baxter's not a toady anymore. He's not a lackey.
I'm interested to see if this sets up like more conflict between him and Shredder, and that's what eventually leads to him. Like we all know he's going to get transformed into a mutant fly.
Spoilers.
I don't remember when that happens, but I do want to know if it's like, there are versions of the Turtles that will come after this where the mutation or something happening to Baxter is a punishment from Shredder. And so I'm interested to see if it, like, in my head, it's accidental in this, but I'm interested to see if it comes out of another disagreement between him and Shredder.
That's just going to be another really great tentpole to this series that I am looking forward to revisiting, because I also don't exclusively remember how that unfolds.
Yeah, it's fun. Like, I know, obviously, like, yeah, that was it's a spoiler, but like, come on, we're watching this like 30 years on.
I'm just joking. If anybody's listening to this podcast on the first visit of the Ninja Turtles, you're in the wrong place.
True. But I it's funny to think of like we started the episode talking about how we don't remember all these episodes, but there are things that we remember from the show overall, and it's really fun to see how it gets to those points, like how those memories pop up. And that's one of those things that's like, everybody knows that Baxter Stockman in this series becomes a fly. And I don't remember how it happens, and I'm looking forward to seeing how it happens. I think it's going to be a fun thing, even though I know what's coming.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, I have watched Jeff Goldblum's The Fly a lot more than I have watched Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles episode whatever, where Baxter Stockman becomes his inevitable fly self. So, yeah. It's kind of lost in the ether. So, yeah, another great part of just kind of revisiting this series as an adult is something you loved as a kid, and just seeing how well it still kind of translates and holds up. It's not perfect. It's very much a product of its time, but it holds so much homage to the entertainment that influenced it. And that's the great part, because like that's what Turtles is all about, is just kind of riffing on observational entertainment that's happening in the moment, right? And that's why it continues to work as a franchise, because they can continue to say, like, here's the most absurd idea we can come up with, anthropomorphic mutant, like, angsty teenagers who can fight, and we can throw that into any absurdist scenario and have it be the most logical thing in the room.
Yeah. It is kind of funny because, like, I think most people, when they think of the Ninja Turtles, they just think of, like, the initial concept. And then they're kind of surprised when they learn, like, how much it becomes a sci-fi story, how much it deals with aliens, and extra dimensions and other planets and all this fun stuff. And it's like, well, yeah, that was in its DNA from the beginning.
And that's exactly why I love the Turtles. We've talked about the found family aspect. That's a huge aspect of it. But I would argue that even more so, it's just the absurdist level of Turtles. I really love the Peter Lairdism of it all. It's just like, oh, what are we going to do this week? Fucking time travel. Why not?
Yeah, it's this willingness to take some of the different like tropes of the comic book industry and just throw them all in the pot and be like, yeah, well, what would our characters do in this situation? And it really speaks to the care that Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird had with the original comic and the people that they worked with and hired and, you know, kind of like handed the series off to as time went on, that everybody has been able to make really interesting stories from what is a ludicrous concept.
I really think that's a great storytelling technique, is just come up with the most absurd thing you can and then force it into a familiar scenario.
Yeah.
And clearly it's worked for almost 40 years.
Right? How crazy is that?
It's kind of like being an aging hardcore kid, speaking on my own behalf, and watching loud music, alternative music, heavy metal, and stuff like that lasts more than like 5 years. Bands that span, you know, generations, 20, 30 years. It's insane to me because it feels like such a niche thing, but you kind of realize like people love niche shit, even if it's not immediately relevant to them. They kind of understand that concept of being on an island, right? And that's what Turtles are all about. They're about being the weird guy in the group, about not truly fitting in and finding your surrogate family that helps you fit in.
There is something inherently punk rock of at least the original concept of the Ninja Turtles.
Oh, without a doubt. Because they definitely were trying to score the entire movie with nothing but a pure punk soundtrack. I think they directly reached out to Ramones to score part of that film, and they just couldn't line it up, and that's why it's kind of a mishmash of different late 80s, 90s, new wave, pop, kind of alternative, electro, dancey kind of pop stuff.
Yeah, I mean, the movie, which again, like, you're going to hear us keep talking about it, but we will definitely do an episode on the movie at some point. But I feel like the music that they picked, at least for like I mean, obviously we both love the soundtrack, the score for the movie. But like the soundtrack, the songs that they chose for it, I think were reflective of that, like, yes, of that time period, but also just more of that like on the streets feel of New York City at the time. And like, yeah, they could have done a little bit more punk, they could have done a little bit more hardcore for sure, but there was this element of like, this was just kind of like boiling in the underground. And I think they landed on something that really worked, that was like friendly for kids, super catchy, but still fit the world that they were creating in that instance.
Yeah. Like you said, I really do. We're talking about the cartoon, we continually get distracted, but when we do inevitably have that first movie episode or episodes, it's really going to be a kind of a semi-religious experience because of what a product, like a moment in time that was, and how well everything about it was reflected, from the visual aesthetic of the city to the soundtrack to the sound design to the representation of the citizens. Like, man, that movie's so friggin' good.
Like, even bringing it back to the animated series, but even the animated series has such a unique look to it that so many different teams tried to copy or iterate on. And, like, you know, like, as popular as some of those other things became, they never really hit the heights that the Turtles did. And I think it's because they just had this really unique, really, like, out there, again, like, willing and happy to embrace the absurd. And they were, I don't know if it's like that they were the first to do it and so they stuck around the longest, or they were just so willing to continue to embrace it and innovate it that they just outlasted everybody else.
I really think that they just had it so down to a science through sheer luck and observation. And because the absurdists work so well, but also they're anchored so much in a familiar place like New York City, where it is the exact opposite of them jet setting through space. It's dirty, it's wet, dingy, and grimy, and New York is real and visceral and smelly, and the opposite of going out into like Star Trek space, right?
Yeah, it's really funny that like they, even though this cartoon is so bright and really friendly in a lot of ways, they still hit on the same aesthetic that the Turtles movie did, that a lot of what would become like late 80s and early 90s movies in this kind of genre. Like some of my favorite movies growing up are, or I guess like some of my favorite movies, but also some of my favorite like film aesthetic is that like grungy, dirty, dark, wet kind of cityscape type thing. And I'm thinking of like the Turtles movie. I'm thinking of The Crow. I'm thinking of, oh man, there's some other movies that are like all in that same kind of vein. And it's really
Dark City.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. And it's really interesting to see like an animated series that is far brighter and far more aimed towards kids hit that same aesthetic.
Yeah, I mean, my favorite version of the Turtles are in like downtown, Lower East Side, Brooklyn, against brownstones, not the Turtles jumping around Times Square.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is an aspect of the city that is enjoyable, and probably a reason why so many superhero comics and comics in general have been based in New York City is that there is so much differentiation in architecture depending on what neighborhood you're in, and so it gives you a lot of different backdrops that you can work with, a lot of fun art locations that you can do different kinds of action on.
Yeah, New York in itself is such an interesting setting for anything. Like it's been done to death. We have lived through decades of catastrophic events and action and monsters and space beams and ghosts and whatever attacking New York City or Los Angeles or San Francisco or Tokyo or but New York does really work for it because it is, I don't know, in my eyes, globally currently in 2022, as a 36-year-old dude who's lived this long, is still one of the greatest epicenters of cultural crossover.
Yeah, it's also just, there's a capability of being large and also small.
Elaborate.
Like you could be in a specific neighborhood and tell a story that's about like people like a small community, people living with each other. They all know each other, like all that kind of thing. Or you could tell a story about the city as a whole because it's so big and it has the 5 boroughs. And so, like that's kind of like at least in my eyes, the reason why some of these like big cities are used so often is because you're able to tell different levels of story depending on how you focus it. Like you could tell a big, huge thing about how Dr. Doom is taking over the entire city and oh my God, it's crazy. Or like, you could go what like Marvel Ultimates did where they kind of jumped the shark and flooded the entire city because Magneto went crazy or whatever. Like that's a bad example, but it's still like
It's not though.
Okay, it's a good example for what I'm talking about, but it's a bad comic.
You didn't like that? I like that. I thought that was...
Ultimatum?
I mean, a lot of people take grief with Ultimatum, but it's like, how else did you end that run?
Yeah, I didn't like it at all.
All right, let's not get into that. We're talking about Turtles.
Right, yeah, not what I'm talking about. It's a good example for like a large event-type comic thing, but at the same time, you could still tell stories that are like the Turtles, like Spider-Man, like your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. Like your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man doesn't mean anything if there isn't a neighborhood.
That's very good. Very well put. Turtles works because the Shredder can be an evil warlord who's commanding a army from another dimension, and he can also be like a shitty crime lord who's just feeding off youth.
Yeah, again, like that, I think we've hit on a reason why the Turtles work so well is that they're able to tell these stories at different levels. And it can be that, the Shredder is raising a small army of the Foot Clan from the local teenagers, or it could be the Krang have invaded the Earth and they're using New York City as an epicenter, which we've seen the Utrams or the Krang, depending on which iteration you're talking about, do in a lot of different versions.
And the Triceratons.
And the Triceratons.
And the Pantheon.
Yep.
And the Undercity Mutants and all kinds of different things.
You know, you can have a story that's really intimate and really personal, and it could be this revenge story of a man trying to train the next generation of ninja to avenge his dead wife. Or you can have, hey, humans have learned of life on other planets, and now New York City has become an intergalactic United Nations, and so the Turtles can finally walk around at street level because humans aren't weirded out by different-looking humanoids anymore.
I still think that's one of the best commentaries of the series. For anyone out there who hasn't read Peter Laird's Volume 4 of the Ninja Turtles, where it admittedly gets a little less exciting, but a lot more socially relevant. It's truly excellent commentary.
It's a lot of fun. And it's a lot of fun that you can tell all these different kinds of stories, and you do get really fun characters out of it. And, you know, we were talking on the side, like, who's your favorite character who's worn Shredder's helmet besides Shredder? And, like, you know, like, that wouldn't mean anything if there weren't personal stories within this. And that's why, you know, the fact that you're able to tell these smaller scale stories are why we have connections to these different characters. Otherwise, it wouldn't matter who wears the helmet.
Very true. Very true. Very well said. Man.
Thank you.
This show's getting too good for its own good. All right. Let's wrap things up. This is the Cowabunga episode. Knocked it out of the park. Next week, we're going to be talking about Case of the Killer Pizzas.
Woo!
One of the most favored episodes in the entire series run, with some of the most unique, iconic villains in the entire run. So I'm super looking forward to that.
Go to Target and get those action figures now.
But before you do that, we'll leave you with your daily affirmation pizzamation. And Mark Twain once said, sauce like no one's listening, bake like you've never been hurt, slice like nobody's watching, and live like it's deep dish on earth. Take care, everybody. We'll see you in the next episode, Cowabunga.
Bye.
Duderonomy is produced by Brian Van Gelder and me, Dan Spitaleri. Brian edits and mixes the show and also designed our show art. Our theme music is composed by Mario Sello Nuñez. You can hear more of his music on Spotify, which we've linked to in the show notes. Find us on Twitter at Duderonomy_TMNT and send email to deuteronomy.tmnt@gmail.com. Thanks for listening. Cowabunga!